Welcome to Roots and Resilience. I'm Dr. Tejal.
And I'm Dr. Nehal. We have had some incredible conversations with inspiring individuals that we feel compelled to share with you all.
Listen with an open mind and an open heart. You never know, you might just pick up a pearl that might spark something in you.
Enjoy.
Welcome back for a episode of Roots and Resilience. Nehal and I are delighted to have Dr. Dipali Dalia with us today. She grew up in Reigate in Surrey, and qualified as a dentist in 2000. She did all her specialist training and qualified as a specialist dentist in 2008, and she's worked in specialist practice. She is a periodontist, so a specialist with gums, and has been also involved in teaching undergraduates until 2015. In 2018, she began a career change and decided to undertake the graduate diploma in law. She won a scholarship from the Inner Temple and started her studies at the University of Law in 2009, and commenced her bar course in 2022. She passed in 2024 and was subsequently called to the bar at the Inner Temple in 2024. So this is just a very unique situation of someone highly qualified in two totally different professions and we're really excited to see how this sort of came about. Last year was very challenging for the Dipali, and has really tested her resilience. Um, but we're super excited to hear more about your journey today. So welcome, Dipali, to
Thank
Roots and
you.
Resilience.
Thank you
It's
very
absolutely
much to both of
wonderful.
you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So please, if you wouldn't mind, let's talk about what it was like for you growing up. Talk
Um,
about your
yeah,
childhood.
I had a great childhood. So my parents came to the UK in 1969. And then me and my three siblings were born here. So I was born in Balham, and then my parents moved to Reigate when I was about one and a half. My dad owned a pharmacy in Reigate. So it was a real family business, family affair. We were all involved, and I think that's really where I learned how to sort of interact with the general public, how to handle personalities. And just watching my dad, he was an absolute empath. It was a masterclass watching him sort of deal with his patients and things. So yeah, it was a lovely childhood. At the time, we kind of were a bit resentful of having to go to the shop and help out, but now I'm really grateful for that experience. And so yeah, two siblings, an older sister and a much younger brother. It was a bit unusual in that respect, in that I had this baby brother when I was 13. So I kind of feel like I had a hand in sort of raising him as well, which was lovely. But yeah, great school friends. And it was pretty just standard childhood actually. But then yeah, of course, then it was the question of university. What do I do? And I did actually, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a barrister.
Right.
Wow.
And what
Someone
what
gave
inspired?
me someone. Well, I don't know. I think it was just the idea of sort of standing up in court and, kind of putting my arguments forward, um and I was quite literate even then. I kind of liked writing and speaking. But someone told me that it wasn't very diverse and that I could do all the training and I wouldn't necessarily get jobs. So I was then really put off that. And then sort of it's the usual parents saying you can do medicine, dentistry, blah blah blah. Pick something professional. So then I chose to do dentistry, which I started in 1995 at King's. So yeah, I suppose that's the summary of my childhood and how I came into to dentistry, really.
Wow. So just going back to your
Mm,
initial little thought of, oh, I would love to be a
mm,
barrister. You mentioned you were
mm,
quite literate growing up. You enjoyed reading. Did you also
mm.
enjoy engaging in debates and having challenging conversations?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. But I think that I was quite into drama as well. I mean, I never had a sort of a leading role in any plays, but I was always involved in that kind of thing. And dramatics is quite a big part of being a barrister and sort of expressing yourself and so on. So yeah, I was involved in debate, not not to a great degree, but I always knew that I could speak and I could sort of carry myself in that kind of situation. So um, yeah, I don't know, I think we were all watching things like LA Law and all these kind of legal. You guys won't know what LA Law is, but it was kind of our equivalent of Suits, basically. And there were quite a lot of shows like that kind of just made it look really fun and sort of glamorous. I can't say I knew an awful lot about it then, but I'd always had a pull. And there was an interest in the law and criminal law at that time, as everyone was interested in. And I didn't even know that there was such a big, thing of civil practice. So it just seemed really exciting, quite glamorous, and, probably more basic reason than latterly when I've had more sort of uh, thoughtful um, considerations for a career at the bar. But
So you
yeah.
had this idea when you were young, and then it was sort of parked
Mm,
because it was sort of something you felt like
mm.
you couldn't really see a future in. So you
Yeah,
stuck to a
absolutely.
more stable or predictable path in
Mm,
healthcare and dentistry, and then you did pursue that,
exactly.
forwards, and you specialized. So you were very
Mm.
invested in dentistry. So how did you then come to this decision where you were just like, I want to take law forward?
Yeah, so I think there was a number of things. So I'd completed specialist training in 2008, and I mean, it was very hard, and it was stars of my year. We all felt that it took us quite a long time to get over it because the academic pressures of completing the course were quite significant. Um, But 10 years down the line, I started kind of thinking I need a challenge. Now, I, my career has been great and I've enjoyed it, but I can't say like for some people dentistry is an absolute and utter burning passion. It wasn't quite like that for me, let me put it that way. And and I'd felt that I'd really studied in dentistry as much as I'd wanted to. But then there's all of this, talk of litigation. We're practicing defensive dentistry. And I was just seeing and hearing so many stories of people having a really rough time of it and people going through the GDC process and how it affected their mental health and really sad stories of people sort of taking their own lives and things like that. And that's when I started thinking, oh, I wonder if I could work, in for an indemnity company or something like that. Should I do the medical law and ethics? I had a conversation with someone who said, oh, I'm thinking of another dentist who I didn't know. It was just like a Facebook thing. And he was like, oh, I think I'm going to do the GDL. And I thought, oh, well, why don't I do the GDL? Why don't I? And then that whole kind of feeling about wanting a career at the bar was starting to come back. And I thought, well, I could probably go the whole way. And, why don't I look into it? So the specialist training was very hard work and
Mm.
academically really challenging. Um, but after 10 years or so, I felt like I needed a new challenge. And I guess I didn't have the burning passion and desire to do more in dentistry that, others have. And so I wanted something to do something a bit different. And I think with all the litigation that is going on, and everyone lives under this cloud and shadow of litigation, don't they? Um, and I was hearing lots of stories of people really struggling with their mental health, and people committing suicide and things when they've been pursued by the GDC. I thought, could I myself do something, related to the indemnity companies or something like that. And so I considered doing the MSc in medical law and ethics, but I then had a conversation with someone who said that he was going to train as a barrister and that he was doing the GDL. And I thought, well, that sounds like something that I would like to do and something that I could do. Um, and why not go the whole way and really tackle sort of clinical negligence as a whole? as opposed to just from a one-dimensional perspective. Um, uh, in sort of within dentistry and within an indemnity company. So that's just when I started looking into it, really. And I thought, well, I'll start and I'll see where it takes me. So I was quite relaxed about the whole thing.
Hmm.
And so I just started reading up about, how do you become a barrister? Um, and then, yeah, again, all those feelings that I had, as a teenager, that excitement of, this could be a really cool career. This is something that I think I'm suited to. Sort of started coming back. So I started reading about it. I went to a talk actually at the Inner Temple where they explained what you had to do in order to become a barrister, sort of what uh, qualifications that you would need, because it's a very academic profession. And so they are
Hmm.
looking at people who have done very well academically and so on. So I thought, well, I've done all right in my academics, so that's fine. And
Wow.
so yeah, mm,
I'm
sorry, go
just
on.
gonna ask a couple of questions. That's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
please.
And I love how you're like shining and glowing testament to it's never too late to
Oh
pivot, change
yeah.
course, or do whatever you want, right?
Mm,
So, a couple of questions just for our listeners and for myself. So, the
yeah.
inner temple sounds like this really cool, mysterious place. Is the inner is the inner temple like a school for barristers? Is it somewhere where you go? And with a barrister, what's the difference between a lawyer and a barrister?
So yeah, so the first question, I'll answer that first. So the Inner Temple is one of the Inns of Court. So there are four Inns of Court. There's Inner Temple, uh, Middle Temple, Gray's Inn, and Lincoln's Inn. And they used to be the colleges at which people would train to become lawyers or barristers. Now they're almost like the Royal Colleges of Surgeons. I think that's probably the best way that I can describe it. So you go and get your degrees or whatever. So when I did specialist training, I did my implant dent at Guy's, but then I got my MRD, my membership of restorative dentistry from the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. So it's the same sort of thing. So you're called to the bar by your inn, basically. And each, so they have like our Royal Colleges do, libraries that you can attend. They're a great resource for sort of legal research and so on. There's a whole supportive network for student barristers. You can do courses there, so you have to do a certain number of courses at the inn to qualify as a barrister and so on, in addition to your academic training. Um, but they provide mentorship and a real community, really, of barristers. Um, Probably more so, from my perspective, than I would have got from the Royal College of Surgeons. It's a very collegiate profession, actually. Um, People are very willing to help one another, um, rather than throw each other under the bus. And that was really refreshing, actually. That whoever I asked, or if I went and did work experience, or if I went to any courses, if I went up to someone and asked them for help, they would happily give their details and say, drop me an email, give me a call, and I'll help you in any way that I can. So that's what the function of the inn is, particularly. And then your second question was, what's the difference between a barrister and a lawyer? Well, a barrister is a lawyer, but a barrister is different to a solicitor. So you can either become a solicitor or a barrister. So the solicitor will do a bit more of the sort of um, background work. So let's say if I were a patient who wanted to bring a case against a dentist, I would then instruct a firm of solicitors. I would tell them my story. They would then um, sort of get all the evidence together and prepare the case, essentially. But a solicitor can't speak in court. So that's when you need a barrister. So a barrister has rights of audience, and a barrister can stand up in court and then present that case that has been prepared by the solicitor to the judge, in order for the judge to then make a determination. So that's a very basic explanation of what the difference between a barrister will do quite a lot of background work as well. They won't just take what they're given and then present it to the judge. They will do their research, they will do their homework, they will advise the solicitor um, on the law or on certain aspects of the case and so on. Um, so I guess it's almost like a relationship. The solicitor and the barristers is almost akin to the general dentist and the specialist. You know,
Mm.
you will get a referral from a
Mm.
solicitor, and then you will then look after your client for that specialist area within which they want or they need the representation.
This is
Um,
fascinating, by the
and
way.
certainly,
And I know I can't wait to get deeper into it. And there's two things I want to mention. So one thing is that I know you
yeah,
said you pursued dentistry to quite a high level for quite some time.
mm,
But you mentioned that you didn't
mm,
feel like it was you felt super passionate about it. And I want to just pause and say, actually,
mm,
I think it's really
mm,
important to say that's okay. I feel like within the
yeah,
profession, you can be an excellent clinician, be really good at your job, be
mm,
really good at looking after
mm,
patients, but not live, breathe, and feel like it's oozing out from your skin. Like it's
absolutely,
like you're super passionate
absolutely,
about it. Or you might have been
yeah,
passionate about it at one stage of your life, and then you
yeah,
might not necessarily be, because at the end of the day, it is a job. Um, and
exactly,
and I think it's really important that sometimes when in with social media, you just see loads of people like posting so much about specifically dentistry, and that's okay. You can be obviously passionate about it
mm,
if it's something that's naturally how you feel, but if you don't, that
yeah.
doesn't make you someone who's any less worthy or excellent in their jobs. So thank you for
I
sharing
mean,
that,
look,
being really
no,
candid.
no, that's fine, and I'll be very even more candid and say the reason I did specialist training was because I didn't really like dentistry.
Yeah,
So
that's
I,
really
But I
common.
think
because
that's
when
so
I did,
common. Dipali, I think that's
yeah,
so common. A lot of people, they
yeah,
might have an experience in foundation training where they don't actually enjoy
yeah,
general dentistry or they just don't get
yeah,
along
that's
with it.
exactly what happened to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they actually decide, you know what, I'm just going to pick something that appeals to me and
yeah,
just do that one thing and get really, really good at it. So I
yeah,
really appreciate that, like Tej was saying, and I think that, I think a lot of people are in the same boat.
yeah. I mean, I went and did because I thought general practice isn't for me, so I went and did a max fax job. That's when I found something I was passionate about. I was much better with a scalpel than I was a handpiece. So I thought, okay, right, I can do this. And then I spent a couple of years working at King's in oral surgery, and I was considering doing the oral surgery training pathway. But a very good friend of mine, Sammy, said, Sammy Darwish, I don't know if you know him, it's his fault that I became a periodontist. He was like, look, you can do quite a lot in practice with perio, and it's a really up and coming specialty, which is a surgical specialty. So I love it, and I love surgical dentistry. Um, but it's not at the core of my existence, basically.
That
And I made a great career out of something that I could have, because I had actually considered doing a law conversion just after I qualified as a dentist. So I hadn't even thought about it back then,
Yeah, so
But
is
but I
what
it
stuck with
something
it.
stopped
kind of
you?
something that's sort of been on your radar and it's come to the forefront and been at the back seat and come to the
Yeah,
forefront, been at the back seat. So it's quite lovely how you did eventually pursue that forward. And I think that's very
yeah,
courageous. And also you did it with intention. You did the
mm,
research. You really knew what you were
mm,
getting yourself into, but you also didn't put the pressure on yourself, from what I hear, to go all the way. You were like, let's do the first step and then see
yeah,
how it goes. And then
yeah,
eventually you did go all the way. But it's
yeah,
sometimes good to pursue your interest or curiosity, feed your
mm,
curiosity without putting
most
that pressure on
definitely.
yourself that I have to
Yeah.
become a barrister.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and I'll explain a bit more about what my current position is
Mhm.
later on, because no doubt you've got questions at this point. But I think that this is one of the things that is really important in order to lead a sort of peaceful and chaos-free life. I think it's very important to realize that. it's the trying of whatever you want to do that is the important thing. The end point may be there or may not be there for you. And if it isn't, that's because it wasn't meant for you. And it has taken me a bit of time. I'm nearly 50 now, and it's taken me a bit of time to come to that real, because I am a real perfectionist. I always want to be the best at anything I do. And that is a little bit of a curse. But things have happened in the last year that have put a lot into perspective for me, where I feel like, we're all going to end up in the same place. Do you know what I mean? So it's important for us to live our lives and pursue things to make ourselves feel happy and to give ourselves joy. There's no point in pursuing something that's just going to give you angst and heartache. It is just no way to live. And every choice you make is your own choice. No one is holding a gun to your head and saying, you must do this, you must become a barrister, you must carry on in general dentistry. They're all choices. Um, and and to be brave and make the choices, notwithstanding, I mean, I'm in a situation where I don't have children, for example. So that made my life much easier in being able to pursue this line. Had I had kids, it would have been completely different. But, you know, I made a decision to give it a go, like you said, without putting pressure on myself, and that allowed me to enjoy it. So, yeah,
That's
it
really
is really
important.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
And
better for it. And it's almost of a kind of a deep sense of personal satisfaction that, yeah, I gave it a go. And sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised with what comes out at the other
Exactly.
end, or even the people you meet
Exactly.
along the way.
hey, are you enjoying this episode? If you are, you might love our monthly newsletter. It's where Nehal and I share podcast updates, community news, upcoming events, reflections, ideas, and some fun extras. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation.
Absolutely, 100%. Oh my goodness, I've met some amazing people along the way. So yeah,
Were
in
you
both
still
in both careers.
were you still
Sorry.
practicing dentistry when you were doing all your law studies?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I couldn't afford not to really.
Yes.
So yeah, so I was practicing 3 days, 4 days a week at the beginning, then I cut it down to 3 days and then studying as well. So the courses were weekend courses, so that was helpful. So I could travel into college, but it was very full on, as Dara will attest to, because I was quite absent really at weekends and things. Because if I wasn't studying and I was at college, so yeah, it took sacrifice from both of us, to be fair. Um, but it was. I liked the challenge, to be honest, because I am a bit of a masochist like that. I like to be pushed. Um, and I was quite proud of myself how I managed to juggle everything in order to be able to do it. And I had to be very regimented with my time. Again, because I don't have kids, my time is my own and I could do it. And there were people on the course who had children and were working, and I have no idea how they managed to get anything done. So yeah, but no, it financially I had to just keep working. So it would have been great if I'd won the lottery and could have just sat down and studied the whole time.
Did
But
you
And
sadly
feel
that
that you were doing this with the intention that actually maybe I could give up clinical dentistry and pursue this as as my main kind of work? Is that something that you had an intention for or not really?
that was the plan, to be
Mm,
fair.
mm.
The plan was that I would apply for pupillage. So pupillage is like the equivalent of BT essentially, but it's extremely competitive. So for each chambers, there would be around 400 applications for two pupillage places. Um, so the idea was once I got pupillage, yeah, then I would give up clinical dentistry. I applied twice and wasn't successful. So I was going to apply again, but like I said, quite a lot happened last year, and so notwithstanding recent events with my ankle and so on. And so I kind of put a halt to it. But I was actually working as a county court advocate. So after I was called to the bar, um, I worked for a company that would instruct people like myself who weren't fully qualified, but had been called to appear in court on behalf of clients like banks and things in cases like mortgage applications, and landlord and tenant case. Very simple, where the law was simple, but they still had to have representation in court. So for a year, I did work as a dentist and as a barrister. So I was doing 2 days in each profession. But that was not sustainable. I mean, it was really hard. I was doing a 6 day week essentially, and just exhaustion. So it's not something that you can combine the two at all. They're too individually, they're too massive. So I would have had to have given up the dentistry to practice the law.
Do you think you
Yeah,
ever
but
will
that
give
was
up
the intention. Yeah.
dentistry? Do you think you ever will going forward?
Well, I've kind of done another 180. So I lost my dad in May of last year, and it kind of put a lot into perspective for me. Just firstly, that, my dad worked really hard all his life. I mean, they had a great retirement. He retired at 60. So, they had great fun, but he worked really hard all his life. And this is going to sound really morbid, but ultimately our destination is the same, right? And I think that I'd spent so long trying to prove something to myself, being this perfectionist. I can do it. I want to be the best. I want to be the one that is a specialist as well as a barrister. I want to be this unique. And I just thought, it really doesn't matter, because I was putting myself under so much stress and pressure in order to practice as a barrister. It was beginning to take the joy out of it for me. And I thought, okay, no, I need to live my life without working hard all the time, and just tap into those areas of my life that give me real joy, which is spending time with my friends and family, going to art galleries, going on holiday, picking up different hobbies like knitting. I was telling Tejal about earlier. So started knitting, and that's just being more creative, and rather than this pursuit of this high level um, work or activity or whatever we want to call it. So I just want to take a breath and just enjoy myself without pressure. Pressure that I was putting on myself. No one else was putting it on
Yeah.
me. It was me. But also, when you have one parent left, you want to spend all the time you can with that parent. And, if I had got pupillage, I would have been working a 60-hour week. I wouldn't have seen my husband. I wouldn't have seen my family. I thought, I just don't want to live like that. When I started, I was in my early 40s, and I had all the vigor and, motivation to to do this. But a decade down the line, I'm nearly 50, and I'm just thinking, my own health, my own mortality, I suppose, and that I want to really concentrate on my own well-being. And so I've decided to continue in dentistry. I've also seen that the grass is not quite as green on the other side. Like our profession, it may not be the most exciting, exhilarating. Well, some people may say it is, but it is a really lovely way to make good money. I have been in my practice for about 17 years now. I've had long-standing patients who I think of as my friends, and it's a great way, especially with a great team that I work with. Go to work, have a lovely day, come home, made some decent money. It's not bad, it's not terrible, it's nothing to take for granted, I tell you that. And I think it's taken, I've been quite brave, I think, to do the 180, having studied and invested so much of not only my own time, but my family's time, really, into doing it. But I've realized it's not going to serve me at this stage. So I will use my legal training to do something at some point. I broke my ankle just before Christmas, And I have a quite a bad knee injury as well. So this year, certainly 2026, is going to be a focus on my physical health and the time to think about what that looks like. But I will find something to do, and I'm sure I'll fall into the right position and the right job when the time comes. So I'm leaving it to my destiny, and we'll see what happens.
That's
So that's kind of where I
beautiful.
am at the moment.
This is the reality of any sort of journey, that it's never linear. It's never ever as straightforward as you jump on a
Yes.
path and it just goes one way. There is back, you go forwards, and circumstances
Mm,
may um, provide different perspectives that mean that you make different choices as you go on as well. And I think quite
mm,
rightly, you do what serves you, what's right for you at that particular time, and there is no right or wrong. And I think it's really powerful. I hope if anyone's hearing this,
no.
when they're thinking, oh, well, I've invested X amount of money, X amount of time into whether it's a project or a relationship, whether it's a something career related, that you feel like you need to
Mm,
keep
mm,
at it, but actually, you probably know
mm,
what's right for you, and it's really
mm,
brave to be able to acknowledge that and to
mm,
to say, well, this is what I'm going to do and make these sort of decisions. So I'm really pleased that you shared that as well, Dipali. And like you said, you've got that training, so you're going to have options going forward in doing
mm.
things with it
Yeah,
in a way that works better for
absolutely.
you, but allows you to have those. That space and time, especially to spend with your loved ones and pursue your creative outlets, and those things are incredibly important for fulfillment.
Mm,
And I just want to emphasize that to anybody listening as well, to say that please do make time for your loved ones, for your things that are important to you, essentially.
mm.
And I actually think, Dipali, you explained it so beautifully and gracefully. And, I think what you said a little bit
Thank you.
earlier about being a perfectionist and all that pressure that you put in
Mm,
yourself was kind of self-inflicted pressure. I know I resonate with that hugely.
yeah.
And I think a lot of not just dentists, but people in general do, especially high achieving
Mm, mm,
individuals, or anyone that's got a project or doing
mm,
something. And I actually think, like you said, it can be a bit of a curse. Yes, it can. It can blur your
mm, mm,
perspective. It can make you go gung ho at something and, actually make you
mm.
lose other things or drain yourself or your own
Yeah.
energy and have negative repercussions. So I think it is so, so important that actually taking a step back and saying, no, not right now,
Mm,
that's
mm,
cool. And like Tejal said, I mean, the skill set you have is so unique, Dipali. Like, we haven't met
mm,
anyone
mm.
like you. And I remember when we met at the wedding and we were all, this is I'm
Yeah,
sure our listeners
yeah.
would love to hear this. We actually met Dipali at one of our lovely mutual friends' wedding. And we were sitting at the
Mm,
reception on a table. And Tedra and I were like, OMG, a dentist and a barrister. Dipali, it's so, so impressive. But what's even more
Thank
impressive
you.
is that you are dictating what's right for you.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, come to this realization after a major life event and at the age of 48, 49, that we're the master of our own destinies, and life is we already live in such privilege, right? We all have great jobs. We live in lovely houses. We're not living under the fear of war or, you know, we as women we have freedom. It's like use that in a positive way. Don't create your own negativity. Don't create your own negative space. Just make decisions for yourself that will give you peace and happiness because
Why do
we're
you
lucky
think?
enough to be able to make those decisions.
Yes,
Mm,
absolutely. Absolutely. We are so privileged. And why do you think, let's just say, for example, uh, women maybe not just men, maybe men as well, but maybe
Mm,
especially perhaps women or men from an ethnic background, why do you think that they put so much pressure on
mm.
themselves to achieve? Like, where do you think it comes from?
I think it probably comes from our parents because certainly my generation, our parents first to emigrate to the UK or to the West, right? So we've seen them work really hard and they have invested heavily in us to make sure that we didn't have to work as hard as they did. And and they have expectations as well, let's be honest, right? So I think for me, it came from my dad was quite kind of hard on us when we're not hard, I mean, not in a bad, abusive way, in any way, shape, or form, but he had high expectations of us. Um, and always wanted to know, well, if you didn't, and every Asian person is going to resonate with this when I say, you say you came second, and they'll say, well, why didn't you come first? It was that kind of pushing, pushing, and that then becomes inherently a part of you. Um, and and that conditioning starts when you're so young that even when they stop expecting from you, you're then carrying that, well, I've got to achieve. And I think it's just something that might be inherent in some people. I
Mm.
think it's just almost like a genetic trait. I mean, you see siblings who are brought up in exactly the same way, and one of them will be zen and cool and hey, come what may, and the other one will be like, "Rah, I've got to do it, I've got to be the best, I've got to be the best." So, yeah, I think it's nature and nurture, to be honest. But
Mm.
yeah, I think what for our our parents had to endure in order to make a life here and their struggle, I think, probably inspires people to then make sure that they are delivering.
Mm,
Mm. And I think that's
Um,
interesting you say about
yeah.
conditioning, because it's almost that you're conditioned subconsciously to keep achieving, keep
Mm,
almost churning out results, keep performing, you know?
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
comes from
Yeah.
probably it doesn't come from a place of bad intention from parents
Not at
because they just
all.
want
Not
you
at
to
all.
exactly to do well and to see you
Yeah.
thrive. But I think you're right. I think some people internalize that a lot more than
Mm,
others. And it's so interesting
mm,
because I can totally resonate with what you're saying. I feel like just recently I've shifted my mindset to it's not just about
mm.
achieving. Nehal, you don't need to keep
Yeah.
achieving because I just keep achieving for me,
Mm,
for me, for me. Um,
yeah.
and it's very liberating just
Mm,
stepping back, you know?
yeah. And just sitting with the success that you've had.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing we're not very good at doing is self-congratulating.
yeah.
Like, I
Mm.
don't know about you, but I feel so like even for me, this is such an unnatural thing to do, to talk about myself. Like I am one that will always deflect. If we have if I have a conversation with someone, I will always turn it. So I'm talking about them and not about me. I find this really strange and very unnatural. Um, and I guess I've kind of sat back and thought, oh, I have done well. I have achieved something quite, it's enough. It's enough. I've proved enough to myself. I don't need to prove anything else. Um, but yeah, we don't take the time to just almost write our own CV in our heads and say, well, I have done quite a lot of amazing things, and it's okay to stop. It's
Yeah.
fine. You know, just now enjoy it. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. You don't have to keep laboring for more fruits, I suppose. I
I
just
But
think,
love
also
that.
like enjoying
um,
new
yeah,
skills like knitting. You know, that's a different kind of
yeah,
achievement, going out and picking up a hobby. I think genuinely there was a time in my life I was looking at my husband, I was looking at Tedra, I was like, gosh, these guys have hobbies. I was like, what's my hobby? And like it probably used to be revision.
yeah, yeah,
So sad.
yeah, yeah. I know. And this is something else that is quite important, particularly not so much your age group, but for my age group. We are going to come within sort of 10, 15 years, we're coming into retirement stage, and you've got to have something to do. You've got to have hobbies and interests and things that help you to remain social and sociable because having again seen my dad, who didn't maybe have those hobbies, after he retired, it did affect him, and he sadly suffered from dementia. And I'm sure that that will have accelerated possibly, his decline, not having those hobbies that would have kept him sort of meeting people and in sociable situations, or just, the brain firing and using his brain as it's like a muscle, isn't it? You've got to keep using it
Mm,
or you'll lose it.
mm,
So
mm.
this is the time to make sure that you have got something else to fill the time that retiring will give you. So
Because you got to think about
yeah,
it,
so
and
I'm glad.
I think sometimes it's not like you retire and you jump off a cliff. Like you realize that if you're retiring, say on average around the age of 60,
Mm,
could be 62, 65.
mm,
um, just plucking figures out of my head here, but you've probably
mm.
got another 25 years ahead of you, let's just say. Like that's a
Absolutely.
significant amount of
Amount of
time,
time.
right?
Mm,
That what are you gonna like
mm,
if you've got, what are you going to do with that in something productive? Because it's not like you're just kind of sitting there watching telly and that like you said, not using your brain. It's almost like you actually have to
mm,
plan for
mm,
that phase of life,
mm.
financially and
You
otherwise.
do. You do.
But if you
Yeah,
have nurtured interests along your
absolutely.
journey, then at least you've
Mm,
got something that you can take forward with you into this new season. And then you will pick up other hobbies and stuff, but it's so important.
exactly.
Connection, talking to humans,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
using your brain in different ways to keep it, engaged as best as you can.
Active.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah, I can't even
no,
remember what your question was now, but anyway.
no, Dipali, honestly, it's been such an uplifting, honest, reflective, and amazing conversation. And we're so glad you mentioned that you
Oh,
usually kind
thank
of
you.
deflect away from yourself. We're so glad that you jumped on this
Yeah.
opportunity and you actually told your story because the world needs to hear it. And Tedra and I know I
Oh,
speak on
thank you.
behalf of both of us. It's been an absolute honor to have you and host you on the podcast.
Oh, please. It's been an absolute honor to be on your podcast, which I think is absolutely amazing. And what you guys are doing is
Oh,
fantastic as well. And this whole kind of concept of resilience, I think, is something we really need to kind of encourage people to have, but to also accept that, things may not always go in the way that you expect, but everything will be okay. Everything works out in the end. And to keep these conversations alive is so reassuring, and being part of a community like you guys are developing is just absolutely invaluable to
oh,
women in our profession. So thank you both as well.
Oh, that's really, really kind of you.
And thank you
Thank
for
you for
having
taking the
me.
time. Our closing tradition is if there is any final words or final message you'd like to leave our listeners, or one key message that, that's really you feel really strongly about, please do share that.
Hmm. I think I'd probably say listen to your gut in everything you do. If your gut is not comfortable, make decisions that are right for you. It's not anyone else's life, it is your life. You have one chance to be on this planet and to live on this planet happily and chaos free. So trust your gut, trust your instincts, and don't worry about what anyone else says or thinks, because they are not living your life. And I think that's what I would probably end.
Thank you. We cannot hear that message enough, I think, because we are not always, as
Yeah.
humans, the best at listening to our guts. So
thank you, Dipali.
thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to hit follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and to hit subscribe on YouTube so that you never miss a new one. It really helps if you rate and review the show, and if you found this episode valuable, share it with a friend, family member, or colleague. We appreciate your support, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.